Did you know that 80% of people give up on their New Year's resolutions by the second week of February? That's 8 out of 10 people. Here's another wild stat. Only about 9% of people actually keep their resolutions all year. I'm not saying this to discourage you, it's just a sign that most of us are going about it in the wrong way. If you're like me, the new year is when hope feels tangible, like the slate is wiped clean. I've started off many years full of big goals, only to feel defeated by February. Resolutions can sometimes amplify self-criticism, so remind yourself that we're striving for growth, not perfection. I have to be extremely careful of symptom-based resolutions. There was a time in my life when every resolution I made was fueled by mania or crushed under the weight of depression. I'd set the bar so high I couldn't possibly reach it, or I'd avoid setting goals altogether, convinced that I'd fail. If that sounds familiar, take into account where your mood is at the moment you make your resolutions. Ask yourself if your goal is still sustainable during a depressive episode. Keep it super simple if you have to, so you don't set yourself up for failure or disappointment. Today, I'd like to share 10 carefully selected tips to make New Year's resolutions that actually stick. These aren't your typical just believe in yourself platitudes. We're talking practical strategies that are grounded in psychology, habit building, and real-life experience. Without further delay or explanation, let's get right into the tips. My first tip goes out to everyone who's quitting substances for the new year. It's incredibly common and noble to quit nicotine, alcohol, pot, pills, or whatever else on January 1st. Exclusively relying on the accountability of it being a New Year's resolution isn't enough, thus why only 9% make it through the whole year. I usually go to extremes and say, I'm gonna quit everything cold turkey all at once. If you've tried that before and it didn't work, take note of that. Albert Einstein said that the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. Don't torture yourself by quitting everything all at once and without help. There are medications specifically designed to help with nicotine, alcohol, opiate, and other withdrawal symptoms. Focus on quitting one substance at a time and be very mindful of not trading one bad addiction for another. It's easy to quit smoking pot only to start drinking again. I've been there. In addition to pharmaceutical support, seek mental support. Most people self-medicate with substances to cope with underlying issues. Sobriety often brings these issues to the surface. Be prepared for this. When I quit smoking pot, my anxiety went through the roof. When I quit opiates, my body screamed with pain. When I quit benzos, I had panic attacks. I had to learn new ways of managing these symptoms, and the best way I found was talking to someone who knows their shit, like a therapist, addiction specialist, or a wellness coach. Your chances of success skyrocket if you don't go at it alone. My second tip is to understand the psychology of change. Recognize that change requires rewiring your brain. Breaking old habits and forming new ones is challenging because it goes against ingrained neural pathways, especially if our addiction or bad habit produces dopamine. If you aren't familiar with neuroplasticity, it's the brain's incredible ability to rewire itself. We can literally change our brain's structure and connections by developing new habits and ways of coping with symptoms. There is a small catch. You have to commit to consistency for long enough that your brain has time to adapt. It usually takes around 60 to 90 days to create these new neural pathways in the brain. That said, make a hard New Year's commitment to stick with your resolution for at least 3 months. If you can make it to 3, you can make it to 12. Tip number 3, leverage the power of habit stacking. Anchor new habits to an established routine. For example, if your resolution is to exercise more often, Pair it with taking a shower. I will make sure to exercise every time before I take a shower. If your resolution is to meditate daily, pair it with brushing your teeth. After I brush my teeth, I'll meditate for 5 minutes. If you can link the new habit to an existing routine, it's easier to remember and to stick with it. Tip number 4, track important metrics. Most of the resolutions I make are to benefit my mental health because bipolar is the root of so many of my issues. The less symptomatic I am, the less I use substances. The more consistently I exercise, the better my relationships are, etc. If you quit a substance or start a new routine, track your moods. Here's a super easy way to do this. Grab a 30-day wall calendar and at the end of the day, put a smiley face, a neutral face, or a frowning face to indicate your overall mood that day. If I'm elevated in any way, including agitation, I put a smiley face. If I'm stable, a neutral face, and if I'm in a low mood, a frowning face. At the end of the month, I'll add up the faces. The data is invaluable. It's a representation of your overall quality of life. It's a way to track our mental health progress. It also helps our medical team to make adjustments to help keep us in the middle. You can also ask a spouse or a loved one to help track your moods based on their outside observations. Heck, you can even make mood tracking your New Year's resolution. It's that important. Moving on to tip number 5, practice radical accountability. Incorporate accountability systems like weekly check-ins with a coach or an accountability partner, also known as an accountability buddy. Consider making the same New Year's resolution as a friend. Hey John, if you don't smoke pot for the next 90 days, I won't either. Or I'll meet you once a week at the gym no matter what. Sharing progress, or a lack thereof, with someone can help keep you focused and accountable. Be radically honest and do your best to not break your resolution. If you're being accountable to a spouse or a friend, it can break trust if you go back on your word. Super important. If your accountability partner fails, you can't let that be a green light for you to give up also. Maybe have a backup plan or more than one person that you're accountable to. Consider organizing a group resolution among friends. That's how I quit smoking pot. I held myself accountable to a group of close friends and all but one of us were able to stick with it. The accountability really helped a lot. Tip number 6, anticipate and reframe setbacks. If you're among the 80% of people who lose their resolve mid-February, see it as a setback and not a failure. It only becomes a failure if you don't get back up on the horse. Expect moments of difficulty and view them as learning opportunities rather than failures. Ask what went wrong and how can I adjust my strategy to avoid this in the future. Keep going. Understand that progress isn't always linear. If a setback occurs, remind yourself that it's part of the journey and not a failure. Reframe it as a learning moment. If your goal was to quit drinking and you didn't drink for 360 days, don't focus on the 5 days that you had setbacks. It's like having one bad brick in a beautiful brick wall that you can't stop focusing on instead of seeing the hundreds of perfect bricks. Tip number 7, my personal New Year's resolution for 2025 is to be more stable than I was last year. I'm going to be tracking my daily moods so I can compare it with data from last year. My tip or suggestion is to prioritize self-care goals for the new year. To focus on treating the bipolar first. Emphasize resolutions that support stability, like maintaining a regular sleep schedule, avoiding substances, exercising, or staying consistent with medication and therapy. The less bipolar symptoms I have, the less I self-medicate, the better my relationships are, and I accomplish way more work if I'm not symptomatic. Bipolar is at the core of what messes up my life the most, so achieving better stability is my goal. I'm open to trying new bipolar meds this year, I'm actively in the process of omitting all habit-forming substances I put in my body, including controlled substances prescribed by my doctors for anxiety, pain, and ADHD. I'm making one change at a time so it's sustainable. Tip number 8, develop bipolar-specific contingency plans. Expect that your energy and motivation will vary during manic and depressed episodes. Create a plan B for days when symptoms interfere with progress. This could mean scaling back tasks or switching to low-energy activities that will still align with your goals. Divide resolutions into manageable stages that reflect your mood cycles. For instance, during high-energy phases, focus on active tasks like starting a new hobby or vigorously exercising. During low-energy time, shift to reflective tasks like reading, planning, or engaging in mild exercise like walking. Tip number 9, anchor your resolutions in stability. Bipolar disorder thrives on routine. Setting goals tied to predictable behaviors reduces the risk of triggering episodes. Focus on goals that enhance stability in your daily life. Examples include improving sleep hygiene, maintaining a balanced diet, and sticking to a routine. Stability supports mood regulation, which is essential for progress. We've made it to tip number 10. This one may sound oversimplified and a little cliche, but avoid overcommitment. Manic phases can lead to grandiose planning, while depressed phases can cause self-doubt. Set modest, realistic goals to ensure they remain achievable regardless of mood fluctuations. Here's what I used to do. I'd get manic, make ambitious New Year's resolutions, and then when the depression set in, I couldn't follow through. And then I'd have all these additional things to be depressed about. Don't set yourself up for failure. Many of the tips I've shared can help with setting achievable goals. So there you have it, ladies and gentlemen, 10 tips to help you achieve New Year's resolutions, Polar Warrior style. I went through a lot of information online to find these tips. There was so much fluff advice out there written by someone who obviously doesn't have bipolar or dual diagnosis. I hope these hand-selected tips resonate with some of you. Keep in mind that I'm here to support you. It's what I'm here for and what you signed up for. If you need some encouragement or a swift kick in the butt, we can arrange a coaching call anytime. Just because I love feedback, can you let me know which of these tips was your favorite? Or let me know in the comments what your New Year's resolution is. I'm looking forward to hearing from the community. Take extra good care of yourselves, and I'll be back here soon with more Polar Warrior videos. Stay well.